everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Ali.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are into match day 3, people. We have got teams going home. We've got teams going forward. Boy, this
it's all happening. It really is. It's going really fast. And honestly, I think this might be the most jam-packed episode we've maybe ever done.
Yeah.
The problem with going into match day 3 is that everything is like a must-cover, must-see game. Yes. And then also there's 2 games happening at the same time, like simultaneously. So then you have to pick one, and then sometimes you pick wrong and you're like, oh, shoot, I should have been watching the other one. It's a whole thing in and of itself, but we love it.
That's what I did the other day. I picked the Philippines game, and then I really should have been watching the other game.
Yeah,
so
I'm like, I know that happened to me, but I don't remember which game it happened to me for. But we're going to come on to all of it.
We will talk about all of it. But the thing that everybody's talking about, the big topic of the tournament is Waru.
So much Waru content.
I'm obsessed with this koala. I love this koala so much.
We're just more and more is coming out. I think it's like unlimited Waru content at this point. And the best thing about Germany winning, if they win this tournament, is that maybe Waru will lift the trophy.
Yes, exactly. This is what we're hoping.
All right. So from fun to less fun, we do have to talk about, before we get into game stuff, we're going to cover like a few, I don't know what to call these, tournament related topics that aren't necessarily game conversations. Yeah. And this is a really big one, actually. This news broke actually quite a while ago, not that long ago, but it broke right the eve of the tournament. And it's just starting to get traction right now. And I don't understand why it wasn't bigger news. Maybe FIFA released this statement the night before the tournament specifically for a reason, so it would get covered.
Bury the lead, my friend.
Yeah, by all the hoopla around the tournament. But essentially, for those who don't know, before this tournament, FIFA had promised that a portion of the pool of money was going to go directly to players. And this is not normal. Generally, the pool of money, it goes to the federations, and the federations distribute it as they please. And weirdly enough, federations they don't have to pay the players. That's not in the contract. They don't have to give it to the players. So, I mean, that's a thing in and of itself. And so before this tournament, FIFA said that they were going to give 49 million of the full 110 million pot directly to the players. And what that works out to is essentially any team participating in the group stages, every player was going to get $30,000. And then obviously you get paid more and more as you reach higher levels of the knockout rounds. Yeah, higher tiers. And the highest would have been 270,000 per player for winning the tournament, which is massive. Now, before the tournament starts, FIFA says that they cannot guarantee that they can pay players this money. They haven't fully backtracked on it. They haven't said we're not doing it, but they certainly are not holding themselves to keeping this promise. And they're saying a lot of things, like it's financial, it's taxes, it's blah, blah, blah. Who cares? You know what? That's something that you should have figured out before you guaranteed this money. You can't guarantee it and then come back and be like, you know what? Actually, we did the work with our accountants, and it turns out we're not allowed to do this. Like, we all call BS on that. Absolute BS.
Yeah. And the fact that it will still go to the federations. Yeah, but as we've seen, how many nations that are competing in this World Cup are fighting with their federations over lack of funds, lack of payment, lack of everything?
I'm pretty sure the question is, which teams aren't fighting with their federations?
Exactly. Exactly. So the fact that you're like, oh, well, it's going to go to the federations. We're like, well, how many times have we seen that money that was designated for the women's team going to a men's team? Right. You can't do that.
I mean, we're going to come on to it, but I mean, because we're going to talk about Colombia, but just because we're on this, Colombia is in a massive fight with their federation for a lot of reasons. And part of it is wage theft. These players in 2015 for the Canadian World Cup were paid $60, 60. That's unbelievable. So that doesn't tell you everything. So, we tweeted about this. It's actually getting a lot of traction, which I'm happy it is. We don't have a lot more information. There's not a lot of outlets covering this. And I can't understand why. There's one article covering this right now, and we're going to keep you all updated. So there's not much more to it. Just that FIFA has said maybe this will happen, maybe it won't, but it's incredibly disappointing and also, sadly, not surprising. So we're going to go from high to low. We're going back up to the high.
Benzina of Morocco has made history with this World Cup. Of course, we know Morocco were the first Arab nation to qualify for a Women's World Cup. And Benzina came on for this game wearing a hijab. She's the first player to wear a hijab while playing sport in this tournament. That is huge progress for the women's game and all of the Arab nations that are going to want to start putting women's teams out there to know that they can comfortably. And this is just fantastic news.
And we talk about representation, and I hope this is specific, obviously, to young girls. I hope all young girls watching this who are sitting there wearing their hijab, watching her play, feel like they are represented and also see a path forward for themselves. So it's huge on a lot of levels.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
So we're going up high and we're coming back down again because I have a bone to pick with you, Allie, as you slandered me on Twitter the other day.
Slander means it's not true.
It's not true.
Yeah, but you said it.
I think that we really learned that
context is key.
Context is everything. And it's funny because when people say that, I'm like, yeah, but you still said it. I mean, like, context is still everything. This is truly context is everything. So why don't you tell the people what you did? Tell them what you did.
I don't see anything wrong with what I did. I put it out there and it sparked a great conversation.
Just at my expense.
Just at your expense. So, was watching the games on Sunday. And I tweeted out saying,
I was fast asleep and had no chance to defend myself.
I said, are you like me and a romantic and like seeing these like underrepresented, low ranked, according to FIFA, teams progress? Or are you practical like Sarah and like teams that are going to bring something to the next round? Now, that came from a conversation we'd had. I didn't realize you meant group specific. We were talking about one of the groups.
I was going to say, which group were we talking about?
We were talking about France, Jamaica.
Oh, that's right.
Brazil group.
Yeah,
I said I really wanted Jamaica to progress. And you said you wanted Brazil to progress because you thought Brazil would bring more than Jamaica.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you would. I thought that was just your view on.
Well, now I feel like I'm just, listen, this is a tough decision. If we're talking group specific, this is obviously a tough decision. And I will be very happy for Jamaica if they progress. Let's put that there. Like, I'm not going to be sad in any way, shape, or form. Brazil, for me, I think are a team that if they can get to the knockouts could cause a lot of trouble, could go very far. And I didn't feel like Jamaica could go all that far if they got into the knockouts. So for that reason, yes, in this group, I do think it would maybe be better for the tournament in terms of competition if Brazil progressed. I meant that specifically about this scenario. I would say overall, I'm always going to be happy for an underdog to progress. I would have way rather like New Zealand go than Norway go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
it is based on specific. And I think it was very Brazil specific too. I might just add. I think it's not even group, it is Brazil specific.
Brazil specific.
Yeah.
But a lot of people responded to that and they are all pretty much romantics in the fact
that's not true.
There was a lot of romantic. There was a lot who said
maybe
romantic.
We're both reading what we want to see because I saw a lot of people being like, well, I'm half and half. It depends on the scenario. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Anyways, it was slander. I had to retweet it and be like, just so everybody knows. Anyways, that was hilarious. I was in a deep slumber. It was like 3 a.m. and obviously it was like 8 a.m. Allie's time. Little did I know Allie was tweeting away. All right. And the final quick thing, we just want to give a round of applause because Zambia scored their first ever World Cup goal. And that's huge.
Not only did Zambia get their first goals of the competition, they've also gone into their history books because Barbara Banda's goal was the 1,000th goal in Women's World Cup history. So that is huge for Zambia and even bigger for Barbara Banda. So we, salute to the Zambians. So the big game we have to start talking about is Germany versus Colombia. We knew it was going to be a massive clash, but little did we know how epic, ferocious it was. Colombia took the tie 2-1.
You got to explain what that means to people like me who hear that and say that is not grammatically correct.
Tie is an English colloquialism. It just means match, head-to-head game.
Earlier when Ellie and I were talking about this off air, we were just joking because it's just, different phrases. You say draw, we say tie. You say tie, we say win or match. And, we say penalty kick or PK, and you say penalty. We say offsides with the S. You say offside. There's no right or wrong. But let's do it. I think you said it perfectly. Like, we knew that this would be a massive game to watch because we knew how explosive Colombia was. I know I picked them to go second in this group, but I don't think anybody anticipated Colombia taking the win. This is a massive result for Colombia.
Huge. It's absolutely huge. And they executed it. Anybody who listened to us when we was talking about the storylines for this match was that Colombia were going to go on the counter and Germany just did not handle it. They just couldn't.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's start with Germany and let's save the winners for after, because Germany, the overwhelming favorites in this group, nobody thought they would take a loss. And for those of us who were not up at 2 a.m. in the U.S. to watch this, let's dig into it here in terms of, was this a fault of Germany's, or was this just simply Colombia outshining them? And it's not really something that we can say that Germany did wrong.
No, and Germany for me have a really interesting setup in the fact that they just have a best 11. It's not the best person in that position. It's just the best German players, which is brilliant. But at the same time, if you've not got a natural born defender, out of their back four, only one of them is a bona fide defender, that can cause problems, because when you look at especially Colombia's second goal, it was so basic defender error, because they were not defending the back runner in. And I think that was to their detriment, because you've not got someone who's got that eye.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're saying is that it was essentially the fault of people playing a little further out of position. I think it was, as you said, it was the counterattack of Colombia that was able to disrupt Germany. In Germany's first game, there wasn't a lot happening in the middle. That ended up being a bit of a weak spot because Oberdorf wasn't there. And now Oberdorf is there, but what ends up happening is their defense gets caught too high, gets caught too wide, and gets caught on the counter. And I wonder if they were relying a little too heavily on what Oberdorf can do in leaving those pockets open, thinking that they could be covered. Almost like, if you have an Oberdorf, if you have a Juilliard who's a very good defensive center midfielder, you can get away with that. And I wonder if they just thought that they could get away with it a little too much here against Colombia.
100%, because Oberdorf was back and was doing some great things with Magul and Pop in the midfield. Their midfield was much tighter than we saw with the Morocco game. But, and this is a big but, is Colombia could get in behind, because Colombia has one massive thing that Germany doesn't, which is pace.
I was just about to say, did speed play a factor here?
Yeah, because you get Colombia's defenders will nick the ball off of Pop or Magul, whoever's going forward. And before German defenders who have come to the centre line could get back, Colombia's winger was already up in their space. And because they've won it back in their own half, they're not falling foul of the offside trap.
I couldn't agree more. This very early on exploited a weakness of Germany that any team moving forward is going to look to exploit. So this is something that Germany needs to solve quickly, because when you think of the Germans, you don't just think of Alexandria Pop and what goals they can score. You think of how organized they are on defense and how few goals they actually let in. So for a team in the group stages to have kind of solved that and how to break that down, you better believe that other people are going to replicate this, and this needs to be solved immediately by Germany. I do think it was exacerbated by having some back and forth in the back line. There's some injuries. There's some people who hadn't played together. So I think it will get better with time, just naturally, for Germany. But you know what? At the end of the day, they did dominate possession, but they didn't necessarily dominate opportunities. So while Colombia did counter, they countered so much that this just has to be something Germany needs to figure out.
Absolutely. Though, can we shout out with Colombia? We talked about like when pundits are really behind their team. We retweeted it. Melissa Ortiz, when that second goal went in, like, there were so many beeps for a start because she was so excited. She was like running around the studio, and then also the juxtaposition of it is like so much emotion, and Carly Lloyd is next to her like, I don't know what to do with this emotion. I don't know what to do.
Just like stone cold, like, I'll give you a little fist bump here. I mean, Melissa Ortiz, I think, was everybody. I think everybody lost their minds when that goal went in. I mean, mind you, Colombia put that goal away in the 97th minute to beat Germany. That is unbelievable. I mean, but while we're talking about Colombia, because we have to talk about the atmosphere too, that these fans brought to this stadium, because I think it's unmatched so far. What they were doing, I heard that there were chants of "Si se puede" around the stadium. You have to imagine that was a big piece of this. And what a beautiful moment. I think that's a moment that when we look back on this tournament, that's going to stand out because that was chilling.
And as we've said before, is there a team that's not fighting their federation specifically? Since 2015, players, families, trainers have reported cases of sexual assault, harassment, and wage theft. As we said before, that Colombia said that they came away with just $60 in the 2015 World Cup.
Yeah, in the 2015 World Cup, they were paid $60 each player.
There were key players on this team that, because they've spoken out, very much like we saw with France, they've just been shut away, left out of this national squad. So to see all of this and for them to come back and like really show themselves in this World Cup is absolutely immense.
And I'm happy that you said that, because I think that it's something that, like you said, sadly, there's a lot of fights going on. And I'm glad that they're all public, because I think in the past there's been a lot of fights going on. But, I'll flash to the 2019 World Cup, and it was kind of all about the U.S. fight. At least that's what it was here. I can't speak. It seemed like that was the narrative, that was the focus around the world. And I like that in this World Cup, the focus is the fact that actually everybody's fighting their federation. And this is a story that hasn't gotten a lot of airtime and certainly needs to. And I think it's, also because Colombia hasn't gotten a lot of airtime. And yeah, for them to do this with the adversity that they've faced, I mean, they could top this group, and it's so special. It is a Cinderella story. We knew they were explosive, but this is still a Cinderella story.
Absolutely. And then the very last point on them is their wonder kid, their first goal scorer.
Linda Caicedo. What a story. What a story. You were shedding a lot of light on it, actually things that I hadn't even read, Ali. So I want you to talk about Linda Caicedo.
Absolute wonder kid has played, this is her third World Cup in 12 months, because she played in the Under-17 World Cup, she played in the Under-21s World Cup, and of course she's playing in this World Cup. Also, at 17 years old, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, has come through all of that, gone through all of the treatment, come back, and is just absolutely on fire for her country, and is just a wonderful story. So just check her out, because rising star. We had Emma Hayes on commentary over here, and they were like, oh yeah, we were looking at her for Chelsea, but Real Madrid beat us to it. But
if Emma Hayes is looking at her, enough said. We can't move on without talking a little bit about Colombia on the pitch, though, because we talked about their offense, but I think we need to touch on their defense, because this is something they're going to get credit for, the goals that they score. They're going to get credit for their counterattacking, but they also need to get just as much credit for what they were able to do defensively. Germany could not score in the run of play. Germany needed a penalty kick to put a goal away. And I'll even break it down further. Germany had 14 shots. That's quite a bit of shots, but they only had 2 on target. And that says a lot. Like Colombia, yes, Germany had an attack. Yes, they had the ball. But Colombia were able to do something very important, which is limit the amount of extremely dangerous opportunities that Germany had.
Which very few teams can do. So that is huge. And it was just probably my game of the tournament so far. It was just phenomenal to watch live.
I unfortunately watched it on replay, but I'll no longer have to do that when I'm over in Sydney. My heart goes out to all of you fellow people in the US. It's been tough, you guys, but it's been worth it. All right, we have to talk Spain versus Japan, because this was the one everybody was looking to, because this officially decided who was going to progress first in Group C. Obviously, Zambia and Costa Rica already eliminated, unfortunately. And this was just going to determine who progressed first. And I think everybody expected a battle. Nobody expected what we got, which was a massive, whopping 4-0 victory for Japan.
Absolutely. And like, even if you watch the game of play, like the run of play, it was not Japan's game. Again, we like stats on this show. Japan had 266 passes to Spain's 897. Japan had 22% of possession to Spain's 78%. And what happened is Japan did what Japan does best. They created that low block. They had so many defenders in the box. Just Spain couldn't get their shots off. It all went straight to the keeper or to one of the defenders. And then on the counter, for the first half, Japan had 3 shots in the Spanish half, and all 3 converted into goals.
A masterclass in efficiency.
And people have been sleeping on Japan because of previous performances, and you cannot do that.
You know what? I'm gonna stand up for the people who've slept on Japan, because I'm one of them. This is a different Japan than we have seen. Even in the lead up to the World Cup, something clicked. And we know Japan's history. We know what they can do. We know that they're a team that, because of their storied history, you can't really ever count them out. And we know that they've been rebuilding for the past 4-ish years, and they've been on the rise. But I'll speak for myself, I did not think that they were at this level. And I think that this is two-sided here. We got to talk about how good Japan is, and we have to talk about, frankly, how poor Spain was in this game. Because, I mean, you mentioned those stats, and not to sound cheesy, but the only stat that really matters is that Japan had 4 goals and Spain had none.
And in answer to your question about Japan, what is happening is Japan have done really well in the aged categories. They've done really well in the under-19s and the under-21s. If you look at the average age of the Japanese players, they are within those categories. So what's happened is they've aged up. And so the teams that have done so well in those age tournaments are now in senior squad level, and that is what's coming together, because they were missing goal scorers. They've now got loads. They've got they're not basing it around one player. They've got so many up front. So that's what's happening with Japan.
I love that.
What Japan did was uber clever. They'd clearly watched what Spain had done to the other group games, and were like, right, if we want to go top, we've got to nullify certain players. And it was just epically clever. It just was epically clever, because Spain loved passing football, and as you say by the stats, they were like doing their little triangles, and they were like getting the ball forwards and stuff like that. And Japan were patient, and they waited, and their first goal was something straight out of the training ground. It was a beautiful looped pass by Endo straight into the path of their striker, low bottom corner.
June
Yes,
Endo.
Let's talk about Endo.
Listen, we'll talk about her when we come on to Japan, but I'm so glad you said her name, because we just need to. I think you nailed it in terms of Japan's patience and their organization. I mean, listen, there's 2 ways I think that you can disrupt Spain. And the first one is to play physical, right? We know that. And the second is to do exactly what Japan did, which is a much harder version of it, which is to stay so compact and organized that Spain actually can't play their usual style. And if you looked at the field during the game, Japan were somehow able to make that field so tight. They left the flanks wide open for Spain. They left them wide open. They packed everybody in the middle. There was no low block. They kept their lines, but it was condensed, and that's what it should be. And Spain, I'm sorry, they looked slow. They could not figure out how to break down Japan, and I don't know why they weren't able to exploit the flanks, because they should have been able to. But the reason, I guess the answer to that is just that it was slow. Yes, we're used to seeing Spain play around. We're used to seeing them, knock the ball around up and down. But that's not what they were doing. They were knocking the ball very slowly and really rarely ever progressing it. It always went backwards. Forwards a couple pass, backwards to the back line. They could not figure out how to break down that organized Japan defense. And it was just too slow from Spain. It was just too slow, and I really feel for them because nothing changed at halftime, and that is all because of Jorge Vilda, and we're going to continue to shine lights on teams that are fighting with their federation, and we all know this story very well. Jorge Vilda cannot coach at this level because a better coach would have made changes, but instead it was the exact same game in the second half, and Spain could do nothing, and despite them being brilliant players, you know, Japan's organization just prevailed.
And also, a better coach would have had some game-changing players on the bench because Mappy Leon is one of the missing in that defence. Spain.
Yeah. Talk about a game where you needed Mappy Leon.
Spain were missing her in their defence because nobody was blocking Japan. Like, literally all of their goals were like breakaways. There was no pace. There was no nothing. It was just... Yeah, Spain had nothing going forward, which is concerning.
Nothing going forward. That's the thing. All right. You mentioned Jun Endo. We got to spend a moment on that first goal because that was a beauty of all beauties in every single capacity. That ball from Jun Endo could not have been placed any better. And Hinata Miyazawa, like, you can have pace, but that doesn't get you anything. You have to have pace coupled with something. And what Hinata Miyazawa has is pace coupled with being able to read and anticipate where the ball is going and make her late run timed oh so very perfectly. And that's why she got 2 goals on this game. And that's exactly what happened in this first one, coupled with just a dime of a pass from
like you said, you can, and they've been trying to do it, and like their timing has been slightly off. It's why Japan's got a fair few offside goals. But today they were just pitch perfect, and that's why Japan's got 4-0, baby. That's what it is.
I also need to shout out Mina Tanaka, who I think is the MVP of Japan so far in this tournament.
Absolutely, yeah. So they're all coming through, and it's just working beautifully for the Japanese national team.
It really is. And fret not, everybody. We are going to talk about the round of 16 matchups that we have so far because, obviously, as we just mentioned, Spain and Japan both advanced. Japan first, Spain second. We have those round of 16 matchup sets. We're going to talk about those later, but we're going to move on now to our next game.
So our next game, which is probably the second most exciting game that happened this weekend, which was France versus Brazil.
Was that just this weekend? It feels like ages ago.
Because this tournament's just going quick.
We mentioned the atmosphere in the Germany-Colombia game, and this atmosphere was second to only that because the Brazil fans turned out. They did. It was almost hilarious to see how much France was being booed. And that's no disrespect to France, just like those fans, they were on it and they were loving it. This was a really fun game. I think everyone really counted France out too quickly. Why? I'm not sure. We've talked about this for ages, Allie. We know this is the team. They're like the seesaw of the international stage. They can absolutely suck one day and then be the best team in the world the next day. And that's exactly what we saw here. They came out with a point to prove. They came out firing. I feel like they're almost the team that like plays to the level of the team that they're playing. That's at least what they've been this tournament. But oh my God, did they come out firing, and they dominated those first 20 minutes, and they got a goal from Le Sommer to prove it, who also, frankly, came out with a point to prove.
She actually turned up, because like I said...
Well, I think she turned up in the first game, but you don't.
No, I don't. I think she was non-existent in the first game, but she came out and almost got the first goal, and then came out and got the actual first goal, and was absolutely phenomenal. I think the big game changer for France was starting Dali. Dali had that fight, that spirit on the wing, was calling, pinging balls in, was just absolutely phenomenal. So I think that was a huge difference for the French team.
You absolutely called that, by the way, in that last game. You absolutely called that. I give you credit. I want to give, first of all, credit to Brazil for how they responded to going down 1-0, because they responded extremely well in not only their attitude and their demeanor, but they were able to carry it through because they didn't equalize this and make it 1-1 until almost the 60th minute. Have we said yet the score? Oops.
No, we haven't. It was 2-1 France.
Yeah, so France ended up taking this, and I thought that frankly was an accurate indication of the game. I thought they were a better team.
No, they were, absolutely. They managed to nullify Brazil, because again, we've talked about pace, which the Brazil has in absolute spades, and France managed to nullify pretty much every Brazilian threat going forward. The French defence was absolutely on it. I think Diani on that wing working with Dali, say that 5 times fast, Diani and Dali, but they were just brilliant together. They were just absolutely, the switch hitting, they were it was just beautiful to watch. And then obviously you had in the middle, and it just made the difference. It absolutely made the difference.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think France's tournament experience really showed here. And frankly, we knew that Brazil hadn't yet been tested defensively. And that was always the big question mark on Brazil, right? Was we know what this team can do offensively, but can they hold up defensively, or is this just going to be a matter of outscoring whoever they play? And it's interesting because I thought that they held on well, but they looked very slow and lost in their defensive shape. And the question, I think, used to be about the back line, but it wasn't their back line at all. It was actually just the team shape, and they struggled to play quickly on defense and keep their shape at the same time. They were slow to step to the ball. They kept leaving Les Sommers in between lines. They were unclear of who was to cover somebody in between the defensive and the midfield line. They let all of the French players turn and run at them. They were slow and unorganized. And that's the mark of a team who really wasn't communicating and wasn't used to playing somebody who was going to challenge them in that way. So despite holding France to 2 goals, which I think was really positive for them, and they held up well, across the board, that was the big thing for me. Brazil needs to work on their defensive shape, on their defensive 11, truly.
For me, it was their midfield. Their midfield was just not able to keep up with France. They lost the ball really quickly in that midfield, weren't going in for the right tackles. So yes, the midfield, the 50-50s within the midfield, France completely won over. But they did get a goal back, as we said, within just before the 60th minute. And what a goal that was. That first touch.
Debinha!
Yeah, Debinha with that first touch slammed it home. It was just an absolutely beautiful goal.
It was a lucky deflection, but you can't discount that touch, like you said, from Debinha. I think that throughout the game, Brazil was playing pretty selfishly. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to see them start to combine, and ironically, the combination that happened is what led to the goal. It was a deflection, but it was the ball. It was the ball, I think it was, that Adriana should have played. She took the shot. It hit a deflection. I think Adriana played a little selfishly. I would have loved to see Caroline push higher a little bit. I thought Jessie did not have her best game in a game that really needed her. And I think the worst part about that is that in the dire moments, in the moments where Brazil was challenged the most, they didn't lean into this newfound balance of team creativity. They actually reverted back to individual creativity, which was the wrong reaction.
Which, when you look at the second goal they conceded, is exactly why they conceded it. Because, you've got a kick going into the box. Wendy Renard, who is probably the tallest player in this World Cup, she's 6'2". You've got a ball that is coming into the box. Wendy Renard is there. You have some bodies on her. Did they have bodies on her? No. And jump, straight, header, Wendy Renard doing Wendy Renard things. And it's but it's when you're playing France 101, it is all eyes on Renard, because if you've got a ball coming into the box, that's whose head they're aiming for, because she's got that height advantage. Why have you not got bodies on her?
It was a great game. I feel like in the way we're talking about it, it sounds like Brazil was down and out. They absolutely were not. And when they equalized, it did feel like it could have been the turning point for them.
I thought we were going to get a draw
in that game.
They were USA 1-1, the two strongest teams. I honestly thought that, and it was just that beautiful set piece that gave France the edge.
Yep. But that certainly leaves Group F in an interesting place, which we will come on to in our storyline segment.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to totalfootballanalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
Moving on to Australia versus Canada. And we can't start this game chat without first rewinding the clock to the day before the game, and Sam Kerr announces to the world, to the media, that she will be available, and she very slyly showed a little bit of her hand in even just saying that she wasn't going to say how she was going to be utilized. And I texted you in this moment, and I said, I think I just put in the group chat, I said, is this a diversion? Is this actually... Will she play, or is this a diversion to try to throw Canada off of the scent so they can't prepare as well? And I think I was a little bit right.
Yeah. The coach came out and said that we're told that she can play, but it'll be limited minutes. So we thought she might be a sub. And then obviously when the game started, she wasn't warming up with the rest of them. So it was pretty clear that she wasn't going to go on unless absolutely had to.
Yeah, I feel like this was a case of, if we don't win this game, we can't go through. So, like, if Sam Kerr needs to come on the last 15, she will. Or potentially, if we're down and out, Sam Kerr just wants to be on the field for 5 minutes, maybe we'll put her on. But I also want to touch on the fact that, look, the not just the media in Australia has been picking this up. I think that people in the Federation have been very upfront that if Australia didn't advance, then Tony Gustafsson was about to be sacked. He would be fired if Australia didn't win this game. So this could also be a case of Sam Kerr just taking some of the heat away from her head coach.
I would believe that. Because obviously I can see why the Federation would think that, because obviously it's a home World Cup, and to have both host nations go out in group would have been a disaster. Would have been an absolute disaster.
And I would also believe it because this is finally an Australia team that has the talent to progress without Sam Kerr. And they absolutely should be doing that, despite being in probably the group of death. But fear not, because Australia won this game with a whopping 4-0. They basically put their foot on the pedal to start the game, and they just didn't take it off. And Canada absolutely crumbled.
Didn't get out of the pit stop.
Yeah.
Didn't get out of the pit stop to use that
crumbled.
analogy. Canada were shocking from the off.
Yeah.
They had about a good 10 minutes in the first half, and then that was it.
I wouldn't even say that. I mean, Haley Rasso scored a goal in the 9th minute, and that was, I believe, actually the second goal that was scored, because the first one got called back, and then like a minute later she scored again. There was a goal in this that got called offside. We don't need to get into it, but that was it was not offside. That was a weird call. But let's start with Canada, because they imploded. There was no midfield for them in this game. There was no midfield for them in this entire tournament. I thought that they were predictable. And, I think that really says a lot of it. There was no fire. There was no spark. There was no joy. And we talked in the last episode, no urgency. That's a great way to say it. Yeah. And especially in this game, a must-win game, there was no urgency. And we talked in the last episode that it does really feel like their performance has been affected by their fight with their federation. I think you can pretty much see that in the results from when this fight became so public. Their joy is gone. And that was most apparent in this game. So that was a really sad sight to see. And I certainly hope that this early exit isn't something that their federation feels like they can use against the team.
Yeah, exactly. Because, as we've mentioned before, and if you've seen that they came to a temporary impasse with the Federation, and the thing was that they will get paid for this World Cup, but in lieu of training camps for future tournaments, which is so stupid.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And, we can't talk about Canada. I don't want to rag on their performance. There's not that much more to say, but it does need to be mentioned that this is probably the last time we see the legend Christine Sinclair on the world stage.
Yeah. I think she might stay on for the Olympics.
It is just next year.
Exactly. So I think she'll stay on for the Olympics, try and defend the title. and then go. But this is her last World Cup for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, you sent me just a heartbreaking video of her getting choked up in the post game.
And also, I want to just quickly say what happened with Sheridan, because in the NWSL, she's one of the greatest goalkeepers.
Yeah.
But tournament football is a different beast, and it just didn't hit right for her.
It really didn't. From the get-go, she didn't seem to be able to put a complete game together. There were some goals that went in that I think she would on any given day have saved. Why Sheridan, I don't know if it was this tournament specifically, if it's wrapped up in all of the other Canada stuff, or if it's tournaments as a whole. I know Tim has mentioned to us, shout out Tim, hope you're listening, that he thinks that Kaylin Sheridan has really never come through in tournaments like we're able to see her come through. I mean, this is like NWSL goalkeeper of the year, and she certainly wasn't playing like it. So yeah, tournaments are a different beast. I hope that that's something that she figures out, because this is a talent that we want to see at its best on the world stage.
Absolutely. But let's talk about the victors. Let's talk about Australia, because Australia went into this being like, we have to win. Nothing else was going to get them through unless they won.
Yep.
Which again, I think might have been Canada's problem, because I felt like they were just playing for the draw. But we want to talk about it. First off, big shout out is to Steph Catley. Has gone through it. For those who don't know, her dad passed away 5 weeks ago after a relatively long battle with cancer, and to still be in here giving it all for her team, much love to Steph Catley.
She was on it. She was up and down and everywhere. The crosses she was able to get off. I'm so happy she was able to tuck that penalty away. It was a screamer of a penalty, top net. She had an absolutely incredible game. But frankly, so did a lot of players on Australia. Caitlin Ford was unreal. She was newly playing in that wide position, which is that's where she's strongest. And that came through so clearly. I'm so happy that Tony finally just let her continue to play in that role that she was going to be playing in with Sam Kerr at the 9 anyways. Don't try to put Ford into Sam Kerr's role. Leave Caitlin Ford wide and let her do what she does best. And boy, I mean, they were unstoppable up and down that left-hand side.
Yep, absolutely. And then, of course, Hayley Rasso, she got 2 goals, but was doing Rasso things. She was doing what we want. And the fun fact I learned, some others may know this, is the reason she wears hair ribbons is so that her grandma knows which player is her.
Oh, that's really sweet. I did not know that.
And her grandma will send her, every time she signs for a new team, her grandma will send her ribbons in the colours of her new team.
That's precious.
For that reason. So yes, if you wonder why Hayley Rasso plays with ribbons in her hair, it's so that her grandmother can see which one is her granddaughter.
Cute. I did not know that. And it makes me actually like the ribbons, because I'm not going to lie, I didn't before.
No. And has them for matching colour kit. So I think that was really adorable. But Rasso absolutely killed it for this
we can name tournament. Almost everybody on this Australian side. That's kind of how this game was for them. This was absolutely the best game of the tournament. It was the most complete game. It was the best that this team has played together on offense and defense. And what a way to enter the knockout rounds with this game right under your belt. This is exactly what they needed. And the other Group B game, Ireland versus Nigeria, they tied 0-0. So because of that draw, Nigeria will go second, despite arguably being the best team in Group B. Ali, what do you say? Australia are going 1, Nigeria are going 2. Do you think that that's an accurate depiction of who was the best team in Group B across these 3 games?
No, I think Nigeria was the far more consistent, the far more exciting, together team. I just think that Australia managed to get themselves together at the right time, at the last moment, because let's be honest, the win against Ireland was less than convincing. It had to be a thing. Obviously, they lost to Nigeria in quite a shaky game, and this was the game that they were like, this is the Australia that we've been talking about as possible winners coming together. So I just think Nigeria were consistent. Australia just brought it together and just happened to top the group, but that could be to their detriment depending on who they play. So
I was going to say, I think consistent is the exact right word for it. I think Australia have a higher peak in terms of where they reached in this past game. They were able to show that they could be the best team in this group. But in terms of consistency, Nigeria were the best team across all 3 games when you loop all of those together. And you mentioned moving forward, we've got round of 16 set. So the number 1 Australia will face number 2 in Group D. That we don't have set. So it's either going to be England, China, or Denmark. And number 2 Nigeria will face either England, China, or Denmark. But we do have Group A and Group C, who are all done with their group play, and they will be facing each other in the round of 16.
So for that one, we've got Switzerland go first because of their draw with New Zealand, and Norway goes second after a very convincing 6-0 win over the Philippines, which means that Switzerland will face number 2 in Group C, which is Spain, and Norway will face number 1 in the group, which is Japan. And we are both in consensus of this. We think that Group A was the weakest so far of the tournament as a group. Let's be honest, Switzerland managed to progress after a slightly dicey win over the Philippines, which involved a lot of flopping, and 2 0-0 draws.
Yeah, and Norway, I mean Norway.
Yeah, exactly. So to be honest, I would be surprised if Spain and Japan don't progress.
I would agree. I think we could be set for another Spain and Japan matchup sometime in the rest of the tournament. And finally, onto our newest segment, storylines, looking ahead for these final group games. Allie is not joining me for this because they got a bit of a migraine, so you're going to hear my voice throughout these games Wednesday and Thursday. We've only got 6 games left to cover for you. Starting with Wednesday, Argentina versus Sweden and Italy versus South Africa. Let's start with Argentina versus Sweden here in Group G, potentially the forgotten group. 2 tough games have left Argentina at the bottom of their group with no wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. Perhaps if their federation invested as much in the men as they do in the women, those tough games could have been wins, but nevertheless, this team is not out of contention. An upset and 3 points plus a South Africa victory is the only way this team advances. And Sweden, 2 wins, sitting pretty atop the group. Sweden are guaranteed to go through to the round of 16. The only question is which place, a win, would secure the number 1 spot. And the second matchup of Group G, Italy versus South Africa. A win or a draw will put Italy through. A roller coaster of a tournament so far with a narrow victory over Argentina in their first game. An almost embarrassing loss to Sweden leaves this team fighting to advance, but also trying to gain momentum back after a devastating defeat. And finally, South Africa see a narrow chance at progressing, but nothing is impossible. They will need a victory here to have a shot at advancing, but they certainly know that they can play the upsetters in this game. Unfortunately for this Group G, they are on to face the winners and the second place team of Group E, so that will most likely be USA or Netherlands, and I hope I don't eat my words in saying that. And staying on Wednesday, on to Group F. To kick it off, Panama versus France. Panama, despite their 0-2 record so far, Panama have put up strong fights against Brazil and Jamaica. Now these tournament debutantes have a chance to play the big upsetter against the powerhouse France. And France, a shaky performance in Game 1 and a stunning performance in Game 2. We've seen how France can be unpredictable. Can they put together a second good performance and be consistent through this tournament? If not, they could be heading home early. And the second matchup of Group F, Jamaica versus Brazil. There's not too much math here in Group F. It is simple. Win this game for Jamaica or Brazil, and you move on. Lose, and you go home. A draw between these two sides will leave Brazil behind and put Jamaica through to the next round. Both of these teams are darlings of this tournament. Brazil have been the underrated favorite to potentially take it all. Finding themselves now in a tough group, they made a statement in their first game versus Panama, but took a tough 2-1 loss versus France in Game 2. Now we will see what Pia's side is made of. And Jamaica, the Reggae Girls have stolen everyone's heart with the story of their battle with their federation. With little to no funding from the JFF, Sadella Marley, and crowdfunding, physically got this team to the World Cup. With everyone counting them out, they knew they could cause some trouble, and now they have their opportunity to do that with a win or a draw. And finally to Thursday for Group H, the final group and the final games of this group stage. Kicking it off with Morocco versus Colombia. Colombia find themselves atop Group H after a massive 2-1 win versus favorites Germany. But the number 1 spot is not theirs yet. They have to lock it in. With a goal difference being the deciding factor amid ties and Germany having the better goal difference, Colombia need 3 points to advance first in this group if Germany also take the win. And Morocco, tournament debutantes, sit tied with Germany at 3 points, having beat South Korea 1-0. Do not count this team out. Colombia beat South Korea only 2-0. So anything is possible in this game. A win for Morocco could turn everything upside down, as it would leave Colombia and Morocco both with 6 points. And finally, South Korea versus Germany. This game will obviously be happening simultaneously. Germany need the win to advance. 3 points should guarantee them advancing on goal differential, but they cannot afford a tie in this game. A draw would leave their advancing up to chance, and it all would depend on Colombia beating Morocco. And finally, South Korea. They have yet to put a goal away in this tournament. Despite being 0-2, though, they have lost by the scorelines of only 1-0 and 2-0. They can keep a tight defense, but can they score? And that is it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. For Allie, I've been Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As always, we will be back on Friday with the closing of the group stage episode. Stay posted for that. That's going to be a fun one. And for us here at the Women's Soccer Show, they've been Allie. I've been Sarah. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.